and welcome back to this week's movement lesson. Miss Kelsey here, and this week we are talking about how little tiny things that we do have such a huge impact on our space and what we can do to keep that space beautiful. But first, let's start with a warm-up. If you are sitting on the carpet on the floor, you will stand quietly where you are. If you're sitting in your chair at your desk, you'll stand up, push your chair in, and then stand behind your chair. So everyone, please stand quietly where you are. I'm putting my arms by my side and feet together like this, so I know you're ready to move. I say, hello, class, and you say, hello, Miss Kelsey. My turn. Hello, class. Hello, class. Great, now we're going to do a movement while we say, hello, Miss Kelsey. My turn. Hello, class. Hello, class. Hello, class. Hello, class. Hello, class. Hello, class. Great, let's continue that warm-up with some shape making. Remember, shapes use your whole body, not just my hands like this or my arm like this, but my whole body. So first, let's make a high shape. That's a tall shape. Now let's make a middle shape. That's a little lower. And then a low shape is all the way down here. Oh. Yes, everyone stand tall. Great job. Now let's add some transitions to those shapes. So first I make my high shape, and then I do a transition. Remind me, friends, what is a transition? Oh, it's how I get from one place to the next place. Or, in this example, from a high shape to a middle shape. Let's look. Make your high shape. It does not have to look like mine. Now I'm going to spin one time to transition to my middle shape. Spin, middle shape. Now I'm going to transition again from my middle shape to my low shape. What should we do? Wiggle's a great one. Make that middle shape. And now I'm gonna wiggle to my low shape. Very nice, everyone stand tall. So today, friends, my shorts have rocket ships on them. Rocket ships. There's a reason I'm wearing rocket ship shorts today. It's because looking at space is fun. Thinking about how things are so far away is amazing. How there's galaxies so far away, you could shoot a spitball and it would take an infinite amount of time to get there. Wild. But anyway, let's take a look at some space-inspired locomotor movement. Let's locomote those transitions in between our three different shapes at three different levels. Here we go. Everyone make a high shape. Remember, your shape will definitely look different than mine, but mine looks like this. Now, I'm going to run as fast as a rocket ship, but only just a little bit, like this. And then I'm going to make my middle shape. Then I'm going to shoot like a star that way to my low shape. Here I go. How'd you do? Stand tall. Great we talked about how artists from the past might be inspired to do their work. We looked at the blacksmith, the carpenter, the dressmaker, and the baker, and we used their movements to make our own dance. But I want to take another look at artists that were definitely around back then, but that are still very prevalent today. So let's see. I'm going to give you a 1-minute timer to discuss with your neighbor what your artist process looks like. What have you tried to make lately? What did you use? And how are you inspired? Let's discuss. The first one we're looking at is a florist. Imagine way back when they had these huge feasts and there were huge floral arrangements on the tables to make it really look extravagant. Well, those florists are artists. Today they're doing more things like weddings and baby showers, but they're putting together these creations for an event or a theme. So, like any artist, they have to get inspiration from somewhere. So the first thing the florist has to do is pick the flowers. I like to imagine there are rows and rows of all kinds of flowers where they are. So they probably have a basket. Grab your basket. And they're going in a straight pathway down these rows, picking flowers. They may not like all of them, so they're being very careful which ones to pick. Up and down these rows of flowers, they're picking very carefully and specific colors for the arrangements that they're putting together. Everyone smell your beautiful flowers? The next thing they have to do is they have to take all of the flowers and greenery in little bits. They have to place them into usually a container. Let's imagine we have this beautiful vase in front of us and we're picking the flowers very carefully and we're placing them very carefully in specific places to make a beautiful arrangement. Picking the flowers and placing them. The very last thing that happens is we have to take whatever arrangements to a different place, to where the party is or where the event is. In my mind, all of these things are very heavy. So we have to carry all of these really heavy arrangements to the venue. And there we get to set them on the table. And then we're done. So maybe that's what it looks like in the life of a florist. Let's check it out again with no sound. Follow me. Great job. The next one we're looking at is a painter. Way back when, I imagine they were painting frescoes on walls in Italy or castles in Rome and London, but today probably less so. They're painting on campus or painting murals around the city. They could be painting lots of things, but I definitely think the gig looks a little different these days. So let's take a look at that painter's day. So first, that painter has to have something to paint. In my mind, it might come to them in a vision. Or in a more practical solution, they probably see something that inspires them that they want to draw, see a picture or something in real life. So first, they might study it like this. You try. I just made a square kind of like this, and then I have to stand way back to look at it. Might inspect it some. And then I might be ready to paint. So let's get painting. In my mind, there's paint flying everywhere. We're just throwing it at the canvas. But it's probably not really like that. It probably looks more like this. Maybe they have a palette and they're getting a little bit of paint like this. Really thinking about each brush. Or maybe it's more like this. It's up to you. Next, they have to hang that finished piece of work. So we need a hammer and some nails like this. And then I'm going to hang it. And I'm going to stand back and admire. So let's take a look again, this time with no sound. The last modern day artist we're looking at is the sculptor. They were obviously around a very long time. You can look back centuries in Europe and Asia and find sculptures that are just incredibly old, and we cannot explain how they got there. So they've been here a while, but they're still around. Let's take a look. For the sculptor, let's imagine, for the sake of this, that they're sculpting a human figure. So the first thing they need is a human figure, probably, to be inspired by. So let's think quickly of 3 poses that you think a sculptor might do. Mine are like this, and like this. Now think of your sculptor poses. I'm going to review mine, but yours will probably look different. Next, they have to actually carve out of some large substance like clay or wood, and they use little tiny tools to pick at it. I'm not doing this entirely correctly as I'm not a sculptor, but we're imagining here that we're sculpting a large piece of wood to look like a person. And then at the end, they have to finish the piece. Imagine it's been sculpted to look like my sculpture pose. And then they have to put a finish on it. If it's wood, maybe a stain or a varnish. So we're finishing our sculpture. You try. Very good. Let's put that day together with no sound. Now back to space on the rocket ship. Let's look at size and how we can use size in movement. So of course there are different sizes of things. Something can be teeny tiny or something could be ginormous. But so could your movement. Let's start small. Everybody do a small shoulder wiggle. Now do a really big shoulder wiggle. Very good. Everyone, do a small sway side to side. I'm moving just a small amount. Now everybody do a big sway side to side. The biggest sway you can. Stand tall. Now I can maybe look at different movements with different sizes. Everyone make a small circle with one finger. Now make a medium-sized circle with the same finger. Now make the biggest circle with one finger. I did the same move, but they were all different sizes. Let's try another. Let's make a small bend, like this. Small bend. Now, if I want to make a big bend, that would just mean I bend more things, like this. Big bend. Small bend. Great. You're using size to change up your movement. Let's practice. Rewind back to the Florist day, and we're going to look at that in a smaller size. The first thing they did was gathering the flowers, placing them in the vase, and then displaying them. And we did that using pretty big movement. But what if we did all of that at a much smaller scale? Let's get closer. Perfect. So the first thing we need to do is gather the flowers, but they're small now. Really small flowers that I'm picking. Then I'm going to place them in the vase, but the vase is also tiny. And then I have to display them on this tiny table. How'd you do? Those tiny people must be very happy. We're back in Tiny Land to make a tiny little picture. The painter, that's right. What's the first thing the painter had to do? Inspiration from a tiny picture. Inspiration, tiny painting, and then tiny picture is hung. Tink. Great job. And our last artist, the sculptor. Well, I like to imagine that sculptor is making a huge sculpture, the likes of which you might see in old-time Europe. Several people, things everywhere, maybe a fountain. But we have to scale our movement to be bigger so we can make this giant sculpture. So what's the first thing they did? They still need that inspiration from the human figure. Think big with your sculpture poses. Let's see. Even bigger. One more. sculpture poses. Think giant. Now that sculptor has to carve. But it's so big. Maybe there's some jumping involved. And then we have to finish this giant sculpture. Paint the finish on. It's really big. Stand back and admire your giant sculpture. I'm going to give you another minute to discuss with a partner what your dream artist job would be, either now or centuries ago. Were you a baker, the blacksmith, a carpenter, florist, painter, sculptor? What were you making back then? And what do you want to make today? Let's discuss. So why are we talking about space, artist, and size? What do those three things have to do with each other? It's because I want you to get inspired to take small and big steps to keep our space beautiful. Because all the way up in space, it matters what we do. There are a few tiny steps you can take to help keep our environment great. Let's talk about them. The first thing is when you see trash outside, maybe you're playing outside in your neighborhood and you see a plastic water bottle on the ground. You could pick it up. You could pick up anything and throw it in the trash to help everybody take care of our space. So let's pick up some litter. Great. Let's pick up tiny litter. Maybe it's really heavy. The next thing you can do is help conserve water and energy in your home. That looks like maybe not taking a bath that lasts an hour, turning off the water when you brush your teeth, or turning the light switch off when you leave a room. So flip those switches, turn your water off, and your parents will be very excited. Flip them, turn it off. And the last one is we can grow stuff. You can plant trees, you can grow vegetables for your whole family to eat. All of those things are really sustainable ways to live as humans. So, get in the dirt, dig a hole, plant some seeds, and watch things grow. So, let's review our dance to keep our space clean. There was litter, tiny and big. There was conservation of energy and water. And then there was growing stuff, dirt, seeds, and growth. Let's try it one more time with no sound. Good job! Today we talked about artists from the past and the present, their inspiration and what their day looks like. We looked at size in movement, how you can do tiny moves and really big moves. And we talked about space and how to keep our space clean so we can take a rocket ship to Mars. See you next time. Everybody, breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. 2 more big breaths. 1 more. Cross your arms. Show your teacher you are ready to listen.